Hi there, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll just give it a few moments to let people connect today, and then we'll dive into the content. But welcome. Thank you for joining us. Great. Well, in the interest of time, we've got lots to cover. I'll make a start. So hi, everyone. For those that don't know me, my name is Laura Wakefield. I'm the Marketing and Industry Programs Director for IAB Europe. And we're delighted to introduce this next event in our Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability series that we've been hosting across April. So within today's session, we have BVDW with us, who'll be taking the lead and sharing some of the latest practice-orientated frameworks they've been working on to support corporate digital responsibility. Which is called the CDR Building Bloxx, and they're going to share how it promotes responsibility in digital transformation. We're very delighted to have Jakob joining us first up this morning, who's the Manager of Organisational Development and Digital Transformation at Welder AG, and also the Chair of Digital Responsibility at BVDW. So he's going to be starting this session today with a short presentation on the CDR Building Bloxx initiative. We'll then be handing over to Beatrice, who is the Advisor for Digital Responsibility and New Work at BVDW. He'll be joined by a lovely panel of experts who will dive a little bit deeper into this initiative with us. Just before I hand over to Jakob, a little bit of, I guess, housekeeping for everyone. So just to say that this event is live. So we do encourage you to share any questions that you have for today's speakers in the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. And then we'll try and get to as many of them as we can towards the end of the session today. And just also to let you know that the session is being recorded. So we'll be sharing this with you all after the event, so you can relive any of the highlights that you want to after the event. But with that, Jakob, I'll hand over to you and let you share your screen.
So, thanks a lot. So, it's a pleasure to be with you today and to present some insights on the CDR Building Bloxx, how we call it. I would say with Bloxx, you see, we give it a name to our framework and also the activities on CDR we have done in the past. And I'd like to give you some insights on what is the intention, what is the framework about, and also what are the topics now in the focus. And I'm very honored to present the work of the entire team to you today. I think CDR is one of my favorite topics, and I'm really passionate about it, and I think it's a really reasonable and a very sensible topic. And in nowadays where we have digital all around to do it in a good way, I think this is what digital responsibility is about. And if we all shape it together, then we have a very good opportunity that the digital transformation is in a good mood and a good way to have really a contribution for us as society and as humans. And therefore, the building blocks are one of the drivers really accelerating the entire discussion and also the adoption of CDR within a company. And it started for CDR more or less, yes, the discussion, I would say 3 or 4 years where the first trust crisis just came up. A lot of things happened, data threats, society, which was anxious about what's happening in this digital world. And we have also a discussion about new chances on what is happening with digital. If we, for example, have a look at the topic of health and what is possible with digital technologies, this is just amazing. And beside these two developments, there was another development on the increased awareness on ethics and values, and that really a debate about ethics and values in this digital world started. There are also some interesting figures and studies which really say the real response and the real need for digital ethics and yes, the discussion about values in companies, and it's just amazing how important now in the figures and studies CDR has become, and which awareness also in the top management this topic's just raised. And therefore, CDR, corporate digital responsibility, is one of the answers how to really go for the new chances, how to cope with this ethics, this value debate. And therefore, with this debate about digital ethics, what should we do? What are we allowed to do? This is what is all now aggregated within the word of CDR. And this CDR and framework should give also an operational guiding and help for really make it in the companies integrated and really adopted by the companies, because CDR needs really be not only on the surface, it really has to be integrated in the strategies, in the products, in the thinkings, in the way how we handle all the stuff with the employees, how we see education and so on. So this is a deeply integrated topic, and therefore CDR helps us really to integrate these topics in all the thinkings about strategy, products, and internal activities. And what I'm presenting to you, the CDR Building Bloxx, started now more or less 2 years ago. And just in a short time of 2 years, where was a foundation session and working session on what should the digital responsibility in the BVDW be about, there was the initial session where the idea was born, really to design criteria how to implement and measure CDR within a company and to create a standard. The standard is now published quite a long time ago, so I think it was amazing what the work within this team of the BVDW just created in a short time. And there were more or less, I think, 15 companies just in the mood of co-creation, bringing all their expertise together to shape this framework and this building block. So we have created interdisciplinary teams from several countries. We worked in 3 sprints, and in a time of 4 or 5 months, we have created this framework, which is also available on a website. I'll present the URL later to you, but we have really made it in joint session between several companies creating this framework, and which can be used and which is now for this purpose of a joint definition and criteria and procedures which was created here. And these building blocks, the approach is that we have really a practical framework. So it's not a theoretical and high with definition and extended definitions contained framework. It's really a practical framework because it's coming from really companies having CDR activities already started. So we have brought up this practical experience to this framework. So practical approach, it's really coming from practical implementation experience. And so we want to support other businesses, stakeholders in the understanding of CDR, and that we have really also a collection of practices and standards where you can see how it could work. And this was our intention, that we gather all our experience, we bring it together, we formulate these standards and offer it to other companies, really to give good practices that you could adopt it. And this is what are these so-called CDR building blocks are about. And one of, if I could remember, so I was also deeply involved in working on this building blocks. And one of the key sessions was when we made the definition on CDR. Because CDR, and in contrast to digital ethics and all the other terms, I think it's very interesting about this definition. And for this definition, in contrast to others, I think here are some points really coming from the CDR nature, very good in this definition on the surface. So we defined CDR as corporate digital responsibility addresses the role of corporate responsibility in an increasingly digitized world. Yes, I think we can agree to this. reflecting on the impact of one's own action on society and the environment. So we are really talking about the impact on digital and really having the society and also the environment in the scope here. I think it's very interesting. And the CDR initiatives often go beyond existing regularity requirements and require proactive self-commitment. Very strong words, and we are really talking about what is possible in the digital world, but what should be also done, derived from the values, from the ethical discussion, and what is then the self-commitment. And I think this is also the status of the CDR debate, that we are really talking about the self-commitment and what are companies doing and what are they not doing, having society and the environment in mind. So what do the building blocks look like? They are blocks, yes, for sure. Otherwise, we have just missed the term and the definition. So how is the framework built up? So the building blocks, you see it on the top left, CDR Building Bloxx is the name for it. And we have so-called overarching building blocks, which are the black and the gray ones. And they have more or less a general management or an overarching character. And here we have defined the building blocks for strategy, guidelines on organization and controls, and also for the topic of change management and transformation. And I'll just jump one slide in front and then go back. Every block has an own vision, a definition, criteria and guidelines, what you should do or how you can measure, what must be done to really integrate and implement CDR within this topic of this block. And I think this is very interesting because this block really gives structural and organizational guidelines on what to do really to adapt and to integrate CDR within your company. So it's not in the sense of greenwashing, we define just some values and then that's it. It's really a deep integration within your company. And here you find guidance and support and help what you should do really to integrate it in your company and also how you can measure it. And this is also one of the developments that we will see, that the CDR evaluation will become more and more important, and it will be asked in reports and audits and so on, what are the measures you're really doing for it? And with this, you're really good prepared, also having all the structural prerequisites on having the processes, responsibilities in place. The stakeholders give you a hint on with whom to discuss these topics. For example, the corporate communications department, the HR department. You find examples, best practices, and also resources and tools that you can use right now. And this is what is contained in all these blocks. So the gray and the blue blocks, this is what are the more or less general and management perspectives in. So the strategy, the transformation management, and also the values and principles. This is more or less which is valid all over. And then we have defined in these colored building blocks, for example, special on well-being and health, or digital empowerment, training, inclusion, data privacy, security, responsible innovation, nature and resources, the future of work, AI and communications, which we have identified that here companies have areas for the self-commitment. You will find some of this block more or less important for yourself and your company because it's the industry you're in, the business model, the way on how you work and what is your work understanding. But this is an overall framework which can be used for all the industries, with some more relevant, some less relevant. But here you really find this guidance and the content for all of these blocks. We have 3 blocks on the top of the chart. Here we have defined our top topics for CDR and the CDR discussion 2022. So with the lens of these 3 topics, we see the hot topics companies should struggle or should take care about and find their own position and their way on how to deal with environmental and social governance. So the entire ESG topic coming up, you probably might heard of it. It's a topic which will come quite in a short time. To be prepared here, this is what we see companies really have to deal with this topic. We think that mental and physical health in this digital world is also one of the hot topics. We see it all with the pandemic, coming back to the office, having another understanding and also reach and range of digital work. So we really see that mental and physical health is one of the current hot topics, and also diversity. So all the skills of people, bringing all the variety together, being aware of the individuals to have the empowerment, the engagement, and also the use of skills. This is also one of the hot topics we see in the Bloxx and the CDR discussion as one of the hot topics. An impression for you, we have once made a mapping on what is defined in the framework and what is really implemented in a company. So this is just one example of a company. Yes, it's the leader, by the way. And we have just made a mapping on what our internal activities are compared to the Bloxx. And here we have just had once a webinar on really mapping the block from the practical approach to a really enterprise. And you can see, yes, there are really relevant topics, quite a high range of the implementation of, for example, these controls and all the activities. So the message here, it's really a practical framework which you can use. And this is beside just one example. We have other examples, for example, in the Corporate Digital Responsibility Award, which take place last year. There were 3 categories: CDR and consumer needs, CDR and employees, and CDR and business models. And here a lot of companies just brought their cases to the award, and there were amazing projects already existing in this in companies, and which are really good examples. And if you start your journey on the CDR, then you have now with the building blocks a very good foundation on what is the basic for it. So you can start really adopting it. You can understand it on a different level. You can start to support CDR right from the beginning, adopt the blocks, and really bring this framework to your company and use it to accelerate your CDR development. And join the CDR movement. So if you do good things, if you have ideas on how to shape digital responsibility, make it visible, bring it up, engage, connect with us, whatever. This is what the nature of the building blocks are about. So it's not a closed framework theoretically. No, it should be used for the CDR movement to connect to companies like, for example, also to Maike Schulz with the Deutsche Telekom, which are one of the leaders in CDR and so on. So let's shape a network, a community together to really bring CDR having a good impact on the society and the environment. And then I think we have a very interesting movement we can shape. Thanks for this listening to the introduction of the CDR building blocks.
Thank you, Jakob, so much for sharing and giving us this insight about the history about the building blocks, but also what it's about to happen in the foreseeable future. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Lauren and the team at IAB Europe for hosting us today. It's great. Thank you so much for giving us this room to share and talk about CDR. And then a big thank you to my 3 guests here, my panelists, and thank you for joining me today. First of all, I would like to ask you guys, how and why is CDR important for corporations? Where do you see the value for corporations? And maybe Moritz, you want to start us off on that one.
Yeah, sure. And first of all, also thank you for having me. And I just realized on Friday we have the 2nd birthday of our movement, so we can celebrate. Yeah, well, from my perspective, over the last 10 years, there's been a constant change in the way consumers, but also, for example, investors make decisions on whether to interact with the business or not. And this goes far beyond a company's product or its services. To be more concrete, organizations increasingly are being judged by their environmental, social, and governance criteria. And CDR, of course, as Jakob has emphasized, is an essential component that can specify these criteria. And against this background, CDR, for example, digital ethics or climate criteria, can offer companies orientation and guidance on how to meet their responsibilities in society. And from a company perspective, this is important in at least 3 ways from in my opinion. In the short term, of course, this is the most superficial argument. It might be for image reasons, but in the medium run, to communicate, it is very important to communicate a purpose to the employers, which gets more and more important. And most important in the long term, to make a contribution to society, and in particular, to help ensure that the environment in which the company operates today exists also in the future. So this is the first aspect. But beside this, I would like to stress one further thing. For many multinational organizations, CDR considerations will probably soon no longer be optional anymore. In France, for example, there are already movements that today market regulators require investors to explain how they have incorporated CDR criteria. Similar developments are in the Netherlands. In the German coalition agreements, there are announced similar plans. And there are also movements on the European level. So you can see there are this topic is manifold, and there's a very practical use for CDR. And therefore, I think it is very important for companies to deal today with this topic.
Thank you. One company dealing today with CDR would be Deutsche Telekom. So Maike, what is your perspective on why and how CDR is important?
Yes, I totally agree with Moritz on the one hand. And if you look at the success potentials of CDR and of companies, and if you see that many companies have their own risk control systems while practicating CDR, or to promotion of their reputation or brand through these kinds of CDR activities, and to have a value proposition, for example, in the direction of customer trust, employee motivation, because we in Germany see there will be a war for talent, and for many youngsters it's important to work at a company which is sustainable and has its values communicated on the one hand, and on the other hand, CDR measures pay on the access to the capital, for example. And so after all, yes, at first the company or the board of management has to decide what are the activities for their own company. But if you can see more and more companies are combining digitization with sustainable business and digital ethics to create digital corporate responsibility. And with this, this is a contribution of the company to the society in a positive way. But at the end, the management has to decide how they commit themselves or their company to CDR topics on that kind. And you have to see every time which type of CDR methods best suit to the company.
Totally. Jakob, I saw you nodding there as well.
Yeah, so a lot of good points we had just figured out, and I just want to add 2 more. I think CDR will be a competitive advantage because I think we have a consumer-driven market in the digital world. And if a consumer has the choice between a responsible offer and a non-responsible offer, I think the choice will be in the short term, hopefully, for really the responsible offer. And so I think it's really in this second point, the rediscovering on the value of values. so the value of values. But I think really rediscovering what is the purpose, what is the reason to exist, and to have it in a good manner, and combined with the sustainability discussion, and also the discussion where employees in the war of talents, just Maike mentioned this. I think people are more willing to really support and bring their energy and passion to products which are responsible and which have an impact. And I think this impact and also this consumer responsibility choice are one of the additional drivers for CDR that really brings as a competitive advantage really for companies to really have a good position and adaptation of CDR within their own structures.
Thank you so much for sharing. Since we're talking about CDR is so important for companies, and we just talked about the CDR building block, how would you say can the CDR building blocks actually support companies in like going further in this journey towards CDR? Michael, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, many companies in different sectors are already dealing with digital responsibility and digital ethics as well. And new fields of action and best practices are being added. And in addition, some companies practice CDR measures without calling them as CDR measures. They say it's our internal intrinsic value, and we practice these kind of things. And against this background and in view of the rapidly growing relevance of CDR, it has become necessary to develop a uniform understanding of CDR. And this is the place our CDR building blocks come in place. Because they are structured and there is a need that a structured framework for everyone there, where you have a common basis. And the CDR building blocks form this basis for a uniform understanding of CDR in business, as well as in politics, for example, or in science or in society. Because if you talk about CDR, it doesn't matter in what direction you talk about, you will see different kind of views on that topic there. And so the CDR building blocks, they promote and provide orientation in this jungle of CDR buzzwords, and its application should lead to the standardization of CDR implementations, for example, and the establishment of a recognized CDR standards in the midterm.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it's interesting because with the CDR building blocks, with the different blocks, every company can kind of look what is material to them, what is more important, and they see that as one of the strengths of the CDR building blocks. Jakob, do you want to add on that point on where you see strengths around the CDR building blocks compared to other frameworks too, maybe?
Yes, so just to figure one point out, the strength of the framework is, I think, the origin and the intent, how it was created. Because it was created from people and company really want to make a difference. And they really want to accelerate this CDR debate, and they want to offer this framework for other companies and really to bring CDR entirely to the next level. This is, I think, a very interesting point to keep in mind. Because this acceleration, you have the access really to definitions, to guidelines, and so on, which comes from the practical implementation. And it's from enterprises for enterprises. And it's not on having a consulting approach or whatever behind. Yes, there's a lot of consulting beside, but it's really from people that are really addicted to this topic and want to give their knowledge to others. And this advantage in knowledge in all the definitions, which can be just used, is, I think, one of the big strengths really on having this framework in place or to use it, because there is a lot of brain and a lot of passionate people bringing their knowledge together. And this is what you can build on. And I think this is a very interesting figure to accelerate it. And like Maike said, to also pick the topics you are working on, or which are relevant and so on, that you really have a tailored framework and not a huge framework. And another point that I want to figure out is really that it is a structural framework. So it's not only on the surface and it's not greenwashing. It really gives advice how really build up the responsibilities, the processes behind, because people will just recognize if you write CDR on the first surface and there is no substance behind. And this is for me, in this framework, the differentiation to other frameworks, there is a real depth and really to integrate it deeply and in your company. And this was also the approach on how to integrate, with which stakeholders do we have to talk to really make CDR having an impact in the company.
Thank you. We have one question from the audience here that might be fitting right now. How would you define digital ethics beyond legal requirements? Because as we said, we have to go with CDR right now beyond legal requirements. So not only net neutrality, data protection, legal content, and what would be the expectations on this regard? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, maybe I would start. I think CDR is a thing where every unit of the company contributes on, because if we talk about digital responsible, it has every time to do with IT, and there we see the IT security as well as we see data privacy on the one hand. And so it can only act, or we can only drive good CDR methods and processes only by the playing field of each unit together, of course. So every unit contributes on that CDR topic. It starts at the sales office, maybe from the telecommunication sector, where maybe the shops will sell refurnished mobile phones, for example, but it starts maybe it's a strategy of a company where they decide what kind of CO2 emission the company wants to drive for the next 5 years, for example. So it's a very processical topic on that, and you have to see every time the end-to-end process on that topic too. But every unit, from my point of view, contributes on CDR.
Thank you. I would like to ask, like, digital responsibility is a relatively new field, also at BVDW. So, Moritz, how did this committee, this resort, actually come about at the BVDW? What's the history behind it?
Well, I would say at the latest, with the increase in digital legal acts in Germany and abroad, about approximately 3 years ago, we at the BVDW began to understand that we need to better explain the topic of digital responsibility to our members and make it, so to say, better tangible. Why? I think it is obvious that the times, and we already touched on that, when our members were only responsible for their economic success are simply over. And this is not only the result of increasing political pressure, but also from more pressure from society. And furthermore, and I think that is very important, we are plain and simply convinced that if we want to fulfill our growing importance as a digital economy for society as a whole, we have to focus on more things than just economic success. By the way, I just want to mention in passing at this point that the commitment to social responsibility also pays off later in terms of economic success. I think it was Jakob who already emphasized that CDR will mean an advantage in competition. I fully share that, for example, in recruiting, but this is only one example of many. So the crucial point is we can only fulfill our growing importance as a digital economy as a whole if we address and support all companies in the digital economy and convince them that a pure economic focus is no longer sufficient to persist in the digital world. And we knew that the BVDW is the perfect center for this. And so this was basically the starting point of our thoughts. But in order to make CDR concrete and workable for our members, it was and is, of course, necessary to structure the developments, introduce a nomenclature, create models, all that Jakob has presented today. And this was the very reason why we established this department within the BVDW. The BVDW building blocks were a crucial part to step forward to reach our objectives. The CDR award Jakob mentioned in the end was, from my perspective, a milestone to increase the visibility of the topic. And I think in this way, the members of BVDW can create role models, set standards. And I think since our discussion to focus more on these topics, CDR has even gained more momentum in Europe. And I think this will even increase in the future.
Thank you. Jakob, Moritz just called it a milestone, the CDR award. It's just been like a few months since that award happened. Would you tell us a bit more about it?
For sure. Yes, so the CDR award was starting as an experiment to see how, will there be some companies applying for the award or not? And it was quite an interesting time because it was really the first time we had a CDR award. And it was in cooperation with a lot of other stakeholders. So it was not only the BVDW, it was also in cooperation with, for example, Bayern Innovativ and other stakeholders shaping this entire community. And the idea was really to give a stage to the companies which have already worked on CDR and to share these good practices and to give a stage for these good practices. And I had the pleasure to be part of the jury. So it was very interesting to see all the different perspective on CDR, how it is in the market. And we had a lot of appliance for the awards. It was more than, I think, 50 or 60 projects which were handed in. And so it was a hard judge on what is now the award number 1, 2, 3. And we had amazing projects like the content authentication initiative, which prevents deep fakes, misinformation. We have campaigns against hate speech. We had new standards. We had companies really having digital trainings implemented to shape all the change of our digital work society. We had companies having a codex in place and so on. So it was amazing which range of several or different projects were handed in, and to see how big the implementation of CDR is in the companies. And I think, like also Maike has just been mentioned, a lot of companies are doing really good things, but they are not talking about it. And I think to have a good debate in society, in companies, in also science, I think we need this good practices and we need to talk about it. And this was one of the effects of the CDR award, to bring the entire variety on how the projects are also existing. This was what was really amazing about this award. And hopefully the second award will be probably taking place in the beginning of next year. So there are some discussions about it. And I think this was such a great format and award, so that needs to be repeated, and probably we see some other appliance probably from some of the participants today.
That would be great. So dear audience, if you have a project concerning CDR, and as soon as you can hand in your applications, please do so. It would be great to see different perspectives. So thank you for this insight. We talked a bit about CDR in Germany, in different German companies, but I think CDR is not just like a German topic, but it's in Europe, it's a global topic. So it's it is a relatively new topic in the last 5-6 years. It's been gaining more momentum. But how would you say was the development in Europe or also globally? And also, what are political discussions right now that will influence CDR in the future. Michael, would you give me some perspective on that?
Yeah, from my point of view, there's a very strong development towards CDR topics that the companies have to fulfill, because starting with the EU Action Plan, financing sustainable growth on the one hand, under the wording sustainable finance, that pursues 3 objectives with 10 measures, and the core objectives is to define which economic activities are sustainable in the companies and to channel capital towards these sustainable investments. CDR is no longer a topic someone or some active drivers within the company only do, and it has no big impact, or maybe only an impact on the marketing unit, because with that package of the new EU, they will build a new legal framework that should create a consistent and coherent flow of sustainability information along the financial value chain. And they want, of course, want to prevent greenwashing. So there are a really great framework on legal initiatives on that. For example, the Sustainable Reporting Directive, the Disclosure Regulation was published, the Taxonomy Regulation was established, and a benchmark regulation on the other hand. And that is a big framework the companies has to look at and have to decide how they will point or stand out themselves and their activities on that topic on the one hand. And if we see the latest developments, for example, the Digital Service Act, the Digital Markets Act, which really strong go in the direction of sustainable handling of digital social media and platforms, for example. So there is a very strong development towards regulation of companies towards and to implement CDR at their digital processes on that topic.
Absolutely. I saw nodding heads around Jakob and Moritz. Yeah, for sure, because with the new regulations coming, it's good to get a head start and look at your digital activities right now, see where can it be more transparent, what areas of CDR are material to me and my company, where can I actually do something right now, so I won't be completely surprised by regulations coming.
Yes, of course. And maybe I want to add, and concerning on the question that was before, now, how would you define digital ethics beyond legal requirements? And there comes the companies into place that they decide how active will I contribute on these topics. Regulation on the one hand will become stronger and stronger on that topic, but the topic digital ethics, from my point of view, is a self-binding decision of each company, doesn't matter which size or which branch, how to contribute on these CSR topics then. So digital ethics, from my point of view, is a strategic approach in every company, how to place themselves in that topic. And CDR will be the operative processes, reporting methods, and things like that. In that whole legislation framework, of course, and on top.
Absolutely. And I think since we're already talking about what a company can do beyond legal regulations, I would like to talk a bit about your perspectives from your companies, because you're all active at BVDW, and that's great, and I love it. But you also have your company perspective. So Jakob, maybe you would want to start us off with what role does CDR and also ESG play at your respective company, and also how have you included CDR in your daily business?
So we at Velida, we have the purpose that we have the health and the beauty of humans and nature in mind. And so we have, from our founding impulse, already a strong orientation for values and purpose. And now we have this really digital acceleration in mind, and a lot of technology is happening, and there are coming up from technology driven one aspect after the other, where we have to find a self-commitment on how we deal with it to stay true to our values and how we can enlarge our strong values, which we have to this digital world. So in our self-understanding, it's just clear that we adopt CDR, not from the first row from a regularity perspective, it's really from our value perspective to really stay true to ourselves. And we have a lot of thread within the company when we started our digital strategy, because there was a lot of emotions like also anger and fear about what is now happening. Would we be a company having all in data? Will we spy on people and so on? And there are really threats we had in the company. And with CDR, we can give a good, authentic answer on really doing the way in digital on that we do it within our values. And this was from our internal perspective on how we see digital, a very big point. And to bring it to the outside, to say, please talk about values, is the other self-understanding we have. And then for sure, we have all what is regarding nature and humans and what needs to be fulfilled also in the upcoming ESG debate. This is very, very important for us. And here we want to be a pacemaker, and therefore we adapt all the discussions quite early, because to implement something, I'm a friend on if there is a change, I'll be part of the change besides to be changed. And I think to be in this active position, this is why we also engage in CDR, because we want to really influence the debate and to be in an early stage on see what needs to be done in the right time. And I think this is one of the main reasons also being so active in the networks, to giving this good examples and also to be in the first row in the changes.
Thank you. Moritz, how is it at your company? How is it at Axel Springer?
Well, at first I would like to start the end by answering the question in more general terms.
Yeah.
As you know, Axel Springer is a media company, and of course, I think publishers in general have a special chance and role when it comes to communicate the topic of CDR. What I want to say with that is all media companies can help to explain the topic to the general public. After all, it's a complex issue, and I'm sure you have to convince the consumers of the importance to be successful. And second, it is also important that the economy understands how important the topic is. Only then entrepreneurs will probably be willing to fulfill their responsibility. So in a nutshell, media in general play an important role in raising awareness for this topic. If we want to talk about Axel Springer in specific, Axel Springer's commitment to sustainability dates back to the 1990s. Since many years, we publish a sustainability report. However, it took until 2019 until sustainability was established as an official corporate value. And 2 years ago, Axel Springer launched a far-reaching strategic process to anchor sustainability more firmly in the company. So our most important sustainability topics include, for example, journalistic independence, diversity in media products, human rights along the value chain, and the protection of the environment. And to achieve our goals, we have, for example, decided with an Axel Springer to work with knowledge hubs. Here we provide tools with templates, webinars, etc., to train our employees in subsidiaries, for example, regarding the topic of data compliance. Yeah, and to give you perhaps one or two more concrete examples on the subject of environmental protection, 10 of our digital brands are already today climate neutral. Axel Springer was the first publisher to fully map the value chain of digital emissions. So all associated emissions have been recorded. We have set up a climate-friendly digital products task force, which focuses on a better understanding of the impact of our offerings and how to reduce emissions, for example, via climate-friendly programming. Actually, this very week, we have the Earth Week at Axel Springer because to support the Earth Day that we had this week. And yeah, these are many examples. I could name further ones, but with these means we want to address this complex issues from several sides.
Thank you. Last but not least, Michael, how is it at Deutsche Telekom?
Yeah, we are active in the CSR, corporate social responsibility topic since over 22 years on that topic. And if you go into definitions that the topic responsibility company has developed over the years. And so the CSR area became more and more analog on the one hand, and suddenly about 5 years ago, the digital ethic topic appears, and after that it transforms into the corporate digital responsibility topic then. And so we as Deutsche Telekom, we are an infrastructure and network company on that kind. And we put to act responsible in our our corporate strategic guidelines. And so we have the full variety of all these measures, of course, beginning at trainings and presentations for our employees, a learning journey for these who have some responsibilities on some CDR topics on that, because it's a business people's business on that hand. And you have all to take your employees with you on that journey towards a responsible company and in each topic of that and in each direction. And if you see from the other hand, now ESG topic is coming up too, where CDR contributes on very much and in many ways, like on the social engagement of companies, like on the good corporate governance topics, how you lead your company on the one hand. This could be CDR 2, and the environmental topics are on the hand. And so we have several departments which are responsible for the general direction of the group, and local we have other units which have a great share in the one or other topic, like refurbished mobiles, for example, or to drive CO2 neutral infrastructure on the other hand there. And so I think it's more and more implemented year by year, and the common understanding is getting bigger and bigger in the business, because as we started, some business managers told us, hey, I have to fulfill my job, I have to be quick, I have to be successful, and CDR topics, or to look on the left, on the other side, to have more quality standards, for example, or to do the extra mile to fulfill CDR topics, will not count on the business on a short way. But if you look on the midterm, and now the frame conditions of the legal perspective will tell us the story. From my point of view, only if a company has CDR in their strategy, they only will succeed on the long term.
Thank you, Jurfried. I think that also leads us in the end to my last question, because we already only have 5 minutes left. So I would like to ask one last question. This is kind of also for the audience, obviously. What advice would you give companies just starting on their CDR journey? Jakob, maybe you would like to go first.
Yes, I'll start. be brave, be authentic, adapt really all the values behind the CDR discussion and find your way to contribute to a digital transformation which have a good impact on society and the environment. So be part of it and let's shape the discussion together.
Beautiful. Michael, what would your advice be?
The first of all, convince your management. If it's not convinced on this topic, every activity is not worth to doing it. Convince your management. Then check out the CDR Building Bloxx as a toolkit to get inspirations, of course. Then define your own topics for your own company, and looking on that, think big but start small. If you start to reinvent the wheel new and to be compliant to every topic, you will fail. And then take your colleagues with you, communicate, and communicate. That is everything. I think then it will be easy.
Sure, easy peasy. Moritz, last but not least.
Yeah, everything has been said, but not by everyone. I think the most important things have been mentioned. I can just say, I can only just recommend picking one specific topic is very good. Simply get started, and perhaps I would recommend achieving quick wins first, and then later aim for long-term success. This could be the second step.
Thank you. You were way quicker than I thought, so now we actually have time left. But I would like to thank you all for being here today, and also thank you to your audience. And I see Lauren, so hi there.
Thank you guys so much. That was brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through and share that all with us. I'm sure that we've had the audience had a lot to think about and take in, so really appreciate your time. And also thank you to everyone that's joined us live today. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have recorded this, so we'll make sure that we send it out to you all afterwards. But with that, we can say thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.